गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुरेव परं ब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। चिन्मयं व्यापि यत्सर्वं त्रैलोक्यं सचराचरं तत्पदं दर्शितं येन तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। वक्रतुण्डमहाकाय सूर्यकोटिः समप्रभा निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनं देवकी परमानन्दं कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम्। भवानी शंकरौ वन्दे श्रद्धा विश्वासरूपिणौ याभ्यां विना पश्यन्ति सिद्धा स्वान्तस्थमीश्वरम्। श्रीनिवास जगन्निवास
श्रीनिवास जगन्निवास
श्रीनिवास जगन्निवास
श्रीनिवास जगन्निवास
श्रीनिवास आत्मनिवास
श्रीनिवास आत्मनिवास
श्रीनिवास आत्मनिवास
श्रीनिवास आत्मनिवास
श्रीनिवास लक्ष्मीनिवास
श्रीनिवास लक्ष्मीनिवास
श्रीनिवास लक्ष्मीनिवास
श्रीनिवास लक्ष्मीनिवास
श्रीनिवास श्रीविभावन
श्रीनिवास श्रीविभावन
श्रीनिवास श्रीविभावन
श्रीनिवास श्रीविभावन
श्रीधरा श्रीश लोकपावन
श्रीधरा श्रीश लोकपावन
श्रीधरा श्रीश लोकपावन
श्रीधरा श्रीश लोकपावन
श्रीनिधि श्रीमान श्रीकर भगवान श्रीनिधि श्रीमान श्रीकर भगवान श्रीनिधि श्रीमान श्रीकर भगवान श्रीकर भगवान श्रीनिवास जगन्निवास श्रीनिवास जगन्निवास जगन्निवास आत्मनिवास जगन्निवास आत्मनिवास आत्मनिवास लक्ष्मीनिवास
आत्मनिवास लक्ष्मीनिवास
आत्मनिवास लक्ष्मीनिवास
आत्मनिवास लक्ष्मीनिवास
श्रीविभावन लोकपावन श्रीनिधि श्रीमान श्रीकर भगवान श्रीकर भगवान श्रीनिवास जगन्निवास श्रीनिवास जगन्निवास 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 सच्चिदानंद रूपाय कृष्णाय क्लिष्टकारिणे नमो वेदांत वेद्याय गुरवे बुद्धिसाक्षिणे गुरवे बुद्धिसाक्षिणे कृष्णद्वैपायनं व्यासं सर्वलोकहितैषिणम् वेदाब्जभास्करं वन्दे क्षमादिनिलयं मुनिम् क्षमादिनिलयं मुनिम् In all of our relationships, there is a give and take. We take, in other words, receive, and also we give. When the others also reciprocate in that manner, we feel okay and comfortable. But in our relationship with God, actually there is only taking. There is no giving. What can we give? What is there for Him to desire so that we have it and we can give? He has everything. He is everything. And we know in truth that we are not in a position to give anything. We only take, we only receive. Because of this reason, we are not comfortable with God, in a relationship with God. Because He doesn't take anything, He can't give anything. We are not sure about His care for us. We are not sure about His concern for us. We have doubts why He should do anything for us. Because He is not taking anything from us. When He is not taking anything, why He should do? Why will He do anything? So, we do not actually, in this state of understanding, consider God as our Apta, trustworthy or reliable or credible. We have doubts in considering God as trustworthy or reliable or credible. Because we are not able to give what He is not taking. Why at all anybody should do anything? So we attribute that to God. And then thereafterwards, what we do is, we try to lower the relationship with God or the relationship of God into this exchange, give and take exchange. And then we only decide, oh God, you give me the profit of 50 lakhs, I will place 1 lakh in your rupee. we decide that he has accepted the contract. We compel him to accept the contract. In this world, is there anybody who can enter into such a contract, such a mindless contract? Can anybody enter? Can you enter into that contract if somebody says, you give me 50 lakhs, I will give you 1 lakh? And we want God to enter into this type of contract with us. And somebody says, I have a multinational company doing business all around. So please see to it that this year I get 10 crores of rupees as profit. And what I will do in return to you is, I will give you a kiritam started with the diamonds of 1 crore. What a contract. And surprisingly, these things happen. And people present also. And somebody offers prayer. I have an exam. Please make me pass the exam. I will break 10 coconuts. Does God have the shortage of coconuts? And he has to wait for somebody to break coconuts and then make the person pass the exam. The point here is, the technique is incorrect, but the spirit is correct. The spirit with which we are doing. We can only trust when God also accepts something. At least when we decide that He has entered into the contract and He accepts it. That is how there are so many vows and promises that are taken up in the name of God. And then devotees are comfortable. And things happen. That is the point. Things happen. Because God thinks, what does it matter? For His sake, I can enter into anything. I don't want anything. But for the sake of giving that confidence in this person, in the devotee, that he can now trust God and rely upon God and consider God as credible. That yes, He is now a part of my business, of my contract. So He is also getting benefited. So I believe that He will do this for me. Ultimately, for God, what is important is our belief, our faith, our trust that He will do something. He will have care for me. He will have concern for me. He will really do all these things for me. So that belief, we will be confident of it when we also make God enter into the contract. Then we will feel comfortable. That is why all these contracts with God. Everybody enters into the contract. Then only we feel comfortable. Otherwise, God is giving and taking. Why should He do everything? Why will He do? So I am not confident. Not that God doesn't do, God does, but I am not confident. So I lower this relationship to the next stage. But God doesn't mind whatever it is. Because there are different kinds of people who go to God for different things. Whatever it is, you think of me, that is enough. That is the God's equation. So when we are satisfied with this equation that God is receiving, I am also giving, and I am also receiving, He is also giving. I am also giving, I am not taking just like that. I am also giving. So then I am comfortable. But that way life goes on. But the point is, I reduce all relationships to this equation, including God's. I do not try to understand a higher way of relationship. A bird in a cage starts thinking, why this other bird goes on moving everywhere? Why can't it sit in a cage and then simply be quiet? That is cage logic. Mind's logic is like that, upside down logic is. Like the bird in a cage. It looks logical. Why run around, sit in a cage, it will be comfortable. But what does the bird in the cage know about the freedom of the bird which is flying all over, moving all over? It cannot understand. It understands things upside down. That's why it wants that free flying bird to get into the cage. Vishnu Sahasranama also is like a free flying bird. That is how Bhishmacharya goes from one name to another name, from here to anywhere. It is the freedom in which it is flowing. And it also takes our mind out of this so-called upside down logic. So there are so many names that are connected with the wealth. So that is why we try to look at it in this manner. But Bhagavan gives us things and not because of anything, because he enjoys giving, he loves giving. And he is there only to give things to us. It is for that purpose only he brought the manifestation of this creation. So that is how we continue. 65th sloka. Sridhar Srisha Srinivasaha Srinidhi Srivibhavanaha Sridhara Srikara Shreyaha Sriman Lokatrayashreyaha. Name number 605. Sridhara, the bestower of wealth on his devotees. All types of wealth, materialistic wealth, spiritual wealth, whatever we want, he will bestow because he only has it. And the other names also will explain to us these things more. And we have already seen in various other names that he goes on giving whatever we ask for. Shriyam Dhadati Bhaktanam iti Sridhara. He just goes on giving the wealth to his devotees. And the next name, Srishaha. Shriyaha, Ishaha, Srishaha. Means he is the Lord of wealth. He only made all these manifestations happen. He only created this. So he is the Lord of the wealth. Then Srinivasaha. One of the meanings here is abiding always in the well endowed. Another way to understand is Srimatsu Nityam Vasati iti Srinivasa. Wherever Lakshmi stays, resides, he also resides. He resides where Lakshmi resides. Meaning what? Wherever our sadhana Lakshmi resides. So when we are doing some spiritual practice, certainly he will be there making us feel his presence. That is what residing means. Otherwise he is always there in us as the indweller, as the all-pervading Tattva, but he will make us also feel his presence. When we purify our hearts, when the passions and the lusts have disappeared, Sri Swami Chinmayananda says in this manner, when the passions and the lusts have disappeared, peace, joy, devotion and understanding have arrived. If you have to go, depart. If you have to arrive. Peace, joy, love and understanding. Love and devotion and understanding have arrived. So when they arrive and when passions and lusts leave, then the heart is purified. In that heart, the spiritual wealth is remaining. That is Lakshmi. So where the spiritual wealth is remaining, there Bhagavan also makes us understand his presence. Not that he just enters then, but he makes us understand his presence. So if we are not able to understand the presence of the Bhagavan, in spite of our so-called attempts to understand, the only reason is, in spite of so many things that are there, still few things are not yet departed totally and few things are not arrived completely. So that if we take care, then we come to experience in our own limited way the presence of Bhagavan, the response of Bhagavan, the care and concern of Bhagavan. We will be able to feel confident in this. That yes, he is responding to me. He is there. He is present. So that is very important thing. So for that we need to do this. Next name, Srinidhi. Sri Sabdena Srimanto Lakshante Srinidhi. The treasure house of Sri. He is the treasure house of the wealth of the Lakshmi. And it is also said, Sarva Shaktimaye Asmin Akhilaha Shriyo Nidhiyantanti. In him, who is all powerful, all energies abide. Whatever energy that is there, which is taking care of great things that are happening in the universe, whatever powers are there, which are full of energies, all these energies abide in him. And if we also gain some of these energies, he will only protect these energies inside us. And it is also said, even the Maya can play her games only when Bhagavan allows the Maya to draw vitality from himself. Maya also by itself it is not having any power. It draws the vitality from the substratum for even that Maya. Bhagavan only, it draws that vitality. When it draws that vitality, then certainly it is able to play its own games. So for everything that is there, Bhagavan only gives the energy. Even if we also want energy, then there are many people who advise relaxation techniques, fatigue busters, stress busters and all that. You know, all these techniques are only one thing common. That is, we have to be quiet and then relax and then try to focus our mind on various things. And most of the things are in one way or other connected with the energy sources that are related to God. One way or other. Because every source of energy is from God. So that way, he is Srinidhi. Next, Sri Bhavana, the distributor of wealth. He doesn't keep the wealth to himself. He goes on distributing. And all the people who have this type of bhava, they go on distributing whatever they have. Whether it is Swami Chinmayananji or Pujya Swami Tejavananda or any other great master, whatever they have, they go on giving it to others. It is not for keeping it to themselves. And it is also said, Sri Bhavana means to all beings, according to their karmas, according to their merits, Bhagavan gives away the fruits of their meritorious deeds, fruits of their actions. So if we also want to receive something like that, we need to put in some of those meritorious deeds. Sridhara, one of the meanings is, he bears on his chest the mother of all the wealth, the mother of all the universe, Lakshmi. We have also seen in other meanings this interpretation and how Amma manifested from the Sagarabandhana and then found her place in the chest of Bhagavan. And it is also said, Sarva Bhutanam Janani Shriyam Vakshasi Vahana Sridhara. So, Amma has decided to reside in the heart of Bhagavan, in the chest of Bhagavan. From there, Amma goes on blessing everyone. See, there is one more thing here. In the heart means there where there is compassion and there where there is the presence of love. So whenever we have love and compassion for others, we don't calculate what we are doing. How much ever we give, we feel still it is less and we want to shower abundant, rich blessings or whatever we can do or give to others because of compassion. Love is like that, compassion is like that. The more it gives, the more it feels it has to give something more. Still it is lacking. So that is why if Bhagavan has kept Amma in his heart, near his chest, that means what? He goes on giving and giving and giving. And another thing is, he supports the prosperity of devotees, just as he is supporting Bhagavati Lakshmi in his gesture, he supports the prosperity of his devotees. He will take care of it. He will protect it. He will safeguard it. So that also is included here. So the fears of safeguarding our prosperity is surrendered to Bhagavan himself. He will only take care. When he has protected and he is protecting the prosperity of the whole creation, he will protect our prosperity, which is nothing in comparison. Next is Sri Kara, the conferrer of Sri on devotees. How does he confer this on his devotees? Many times we have been told here in the Vishnu Sahasranama, according to Sri Shankaracharya, that when the devotee remembers or praises or worships, that is enough. Even the remembrance of Bhagavan is enough for him to give Shri to us. And Swami Chinmayananda says, if we continuously reflect on his nature and meditate upon his glories, he gives all the wealth that he is having to us. He gives his own wealth to us. He gives himself to us. But we have to continuously reflect upon his nature and meditate upon his glories. That is the greatest gift that anyone can give. He gives everything he has and finally he gives himself also. That is how the devotee knows the Bhagavad Tattva because of his grace alone. But before this is the sadhana we have to do. Next, Shreya, salvation. He gives the salvation being the nature of himself. It is his own nature. That is bliss is his own nature and he gives us that in the form of salvation. Moksha when he gives his own nature. That is his ananda. And he just gives it away to us. That is why he is the highest doer of good to us. Salvation is the highest good that can happen. So he is the Shreya. Next, Shriman, the possessor of Shri. Here, Shri means the power, splendor and supreme wisdom. The supreme wisdom or splendor or power that he has is incomparable with anything in this universe. It is beyond our comparison, our understanding, our concept. So it is incomparable. He has all that. Because he has all that, he gives all these things to us. Next, Lokatraya Shreya, the refuge of the three worlds. There are various ways in which we understand the three worlds, whether it is waking, dream or deep states, or whether it is the earth and the atmospheric regions and the heaven, or sometimes it is also interpreted as the heaven, the earth and the nether worlds or the Patala. So like that, he is the refuge of all these worlds. In another way, when we look at this, all these worlds are there existing only because of him. He alone has manifested all these things in different forms at different levels with different types of permutations and combinations. Only he alone has made them appear in him. So then Swami Chinmayananda says, if he has made them appear in him, in truth, he is objectless awareness. Because they appear in him, they are not actually present, but they are appearing to be there. So that is why he is actually objectless awareness. He alone supports. Earlier also we have seen whether we understand the creation as the Vivartavada or Parinamavada, both were supported in earlier names which we have taken. In both ways, if we see, he alone is the real. He alone is the truth. That is how he is Ashraya for all the worlds. I have heard that there was once a preacher who went to a mall and then he did some purchase. But it was a very small purchase and it costed only 10 rupees. So when he came to the counter, he said to the person who was at the counter, I have taken it, but as you know, I am a preacher and I don't have the money to pay to you, but the only way which I can pay to you is you can attend my sermon. You can attend my sermon. And that way I can pay to you. But I don't have this 10 rupees sermon. But what to do, he said. Then the man on the counter said, doesn't matter, preacher. I know that you don't have 10 rupees sermons of that value. I will attend your sermon 10 times, 1 rupee sermons, and I will hear it. Don't worry. So, estimation of one's own preciousness or worth is different in different people's eyes. One may consider oneself to be of great worth, but the other person may not consider as such. But our real worth is only in our true belongingness to Bhagavan. In knowing that all the worthiness is only His and He makes it manifest in us, and for the time being it appears as if we are manifesting it. That is the only thing that happens to us. So if we know that it all belongs to Him, then our acceptance of His giving to us at all times is total, and we will be able to maintain a correct attitude with God in a state of surrender. Swaksha, beautiful eye. His eyes resemble lotus petals. Su Shobhane Pundarikabhe Akshini Asyeti Swaksha. His eyes are like the petals of the lotus. Very beautiful to look at. And that is also compared in this manner because lotus always stands for the spiritual knowledge. And the beauty in the petal, and when it shines in the light of the sun, when it is shining, the beauty of the petal is representing the brilliancy of spiritual knowledge. Spiritual knowledge is there, but the brilliancy of that knowledge. So, his eyes represent that brilliancy of the supreme spiritual knowledge. Meaning what? When he looks at us with his own graceful glance, he blesses this type of knowledge upon us also. So that it enters into us and it will guide us by staying in our eye. So that wherever we go, whatever we see, that guidance is there. Whose guidance? His own guidance. His own knowledge stays in our eyes and then it guides us. So, when we look at him and his beautiful eyes, his compassionate glance will make the transfer to us. It happens to us. Next, Swangaha, beautiful limbed. In the avatars, especially in Rama Avatar and Sri Krishna Avatar, he is highly handsome. So So that is referred here. Shatananda of infinite bliss. And here, why it is called as Shatananda? Shri Adi Shankaracharya says, Eka eva Paramananda Upadi Veda Shatadha Vidyata iti Shatananda. Only because of the difference with the referential viewpoint or standpoint of the limiting adjuncts or the upadis, the one Ananda is referred here as Shatananda. Just as the one space with reference to 100 pots is attributed as 100 pot spaces, even though it is one space, actually only with the referential viewpoint of the pot, it is said as 100 pot spaces, even though it is only one space. Similarly, in all the upadis, his Ananda Swarupa alone is there. That, with the referential viewpoint of different upadis or limiting adjuncts, here it is said as of Shatananda. Actually, it is infinite bliss, countless, beyond our calculation. And Swamiji also says here, when we look at varieties of agencies, through that agencies, when we look at his joy, we consider it to be the joy belonging to various things. That is why it is Shatananda. And of this bliss, Etasyaiva Anandasya Anyani Bhutani Matram Upajivanti, from the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. Of this bliss, of this total bliss, of this infinite countless bliss, the beings experience or enjoy only a small part of it. Whatever we experience or enjoy in our sensory pursuit, in our so-called worldly success, progress, gains, all this is only very, very small part of his total bliss. But whatever it is, his bliss is available to us according to our capacity and our evolution, and we are taking part of it. Next thing, Nandi. Paramananda Vigraha Nandi. The embodiment of supreme bliss. He himself is the embodiment of supreme bliss. If supreme bliss is understood to be embodied anywhere, it is in him only, he alone. Like dharma is embodied in Sri Rama, Ramachandra is an embodiment of dharma. Like that, Bhagavan himself is an embodiment of bliss. So, when we worship him, whatever he has, he will give it to us. So, our worship will make us gain that bliss which he has. Jyotir Ganeshwara, the Lord of the luminaries. All those things which are shining, he is the Lord of all things. This also we have seen few times in relation to various other names. And we have also seen Tameva Mahantam Anubhava Sarvam Tasya Bhasha Sarvam. When he shines, all others shine after him. And everything shine only, or everything shines only because of his effulgence. His effulgence makes everything shine. Next, Vijitatma. Vijita Atma Mano Yena Saha. Actually, this is the subduer of the mind subduer. How one can subdue the mind? If it is a spiritual practice to all of us, when we are able to understand the working of the sense organs and thereby with a spiritual practice conquer the sense organs, then when the sense organs are effectively managed or turned inwards or at least outwards, made to function righteously according to the values that are there in the scriptures, then the individual experiences mental quietude. mental quietude can be experienced only when you have managed the sense organs successfully. So then only we can say that the mind is subdued. Subduing the mind means what? Quietening the mind. All the disquiet comes only because of the external contacts of the sense organs, and the mind going through the sense organs and contacting the world, and the world reflecting in itself as the vritti, and because of those worldly vrittis, vishayakara, prapanchakara vrittis, there is any disquietude in the mind. That mind loses its quietness. And now what is happening here? Managing the sense organs successfully, so there is quietude. And if there is Bhagavad there is divine quietude because of that. So that is how we can experience this. That is why he is Viditatma, the mind is subdued. Next, Avidheyatma, of unfathomed nature. Unfathomed, already we have seen, it is too difficult to understand or complicated to be understood. That is why he is called as Avidheyatma, meaning no one knows his true nature unless separated. We can know his true nature only when we understand our nature as not different from him. Then only that knowing, the real knowing, where there is no more happens. That real knowing happens. Real understanding of his nature happens. Only when we become one with him, and there is no becoming also there afterwards. There is only being in beingness with him. There is only being. Though not even the meditator trying to meditate upon the object of meditation, everything disappears, only beingness is there. So then we come to understand. Till then, we attempt to understand in various ways. Now, this is direct understanding without any indirect dependence. That is why he is like that. Next, it can also be interpreted as Videyatma. And it is said, one who has come to live under the command of the higher self, of the greater self, naturally he is called as Videyatma. And Bhagavan also allows us to function according to his commands by giving that purity and that sense of understanding in us. That is why we can also take these blessings from him. And it is also said, one who is available for devotee's command in love also is called as Videyatma. He is available. Devotees generally, when their devotion is intense, and such devotees do not even hesitate to command Bhagavan because of that love, because of that so much of intense devotional love that they have for Bhagavan. So anybody, even in the world also we see, if somebody might be the president of a nation, but to his grandchild who is coming to him in love, he becomes a sincere follower of the commands of the grandchild. We have seen that even the presidents also, when the grandchildren come, and they will become animal for the sake of the grandchild, and they will go around. Otherwise, the security people don't allow any animal and his fly also to come inside. He will become whatever. Why? Because of love, he will follow the command. Like that, Bhagavan also, when he sees that type of pure love coming to him from the devotee, in that state of purity, he will also accept the commands of the devotees. So he is a Videyatma only to devotees. One who has become his true devotee, meaning that earlier we have seen, considering oneself as thine. I belong to you, I belong to thee. If that is the attitude, definitely you also will belong to us. Then, Satkirti, of true fame. His fame is supreme. Why? Because he is the God of Lakshmi only, which is nothing but the total wealth of this creation. So naturally, his fame is unending. So, he is of true fame. And Lakshmi also is referred, earlier names we have seen as Parashakti also. Yesterday also we have seen various combinations of Lakshmi and Vishnu. So, when he is the God of the goddess of the power, naturally he is of true fame. Next, Chinna Samshaya, free from doubts. He is free from doubts. There are no doubts. how we can understand that? Because in order to know anything, understand anything, there is only direct knowing of the consciousness. There is no intermediary, instrumental presence of the mind or the internal organ or the antahkara. For you and I, unless the mind is present, we cannot understand the world. For us, the world has to reflect in the mind in the form of a thought, and then we understand. Actually, when we view the world, we are not viewing the world. We are viewing our view of the world. That is important. Actually, we are not viewing the world. We think we are viewing the world. We are viewing our view of the world because we view only the world that falls into our mind as our view. So, Bhagavan here has no such thing. The consciousness doesn't need the mind or internal organ. It directly knows, it directly sees, it directly understands. Directly. So, that is why there are no doubts. Mind creates a lot of doubts. Because it interprets things in between. So that interpretation may not be accurate. That is why the doubts are created. And it is also said, on transcending the intellect, the seeker can become the self in a non-mediate experience. The seeker can become the self in a non-mediate experience, meaning intimate and immediate experience. There is nothing to mediate. Direct experience, immediate experience. Aparoksha, anubhuti. Direct. When one transcends the intellect, meaning there is no more dependency upon the mind, intellect, memory, ego, organ. So then there is a direct experience. That is how he gives us that understanding also. So we will also become doubtless only when we accept his teaching or wisdom in trust. That is how Arjuna also said, after listening to Bhagavan, that all his doubts are gone and he has no more doubts. But later on we come to see in the Mahabharata Yuddha also, as we have seen yesterday and before yesterday, there are occasions where occasionally he gets influenced by things, but very soon he comes out of it with the grace of Bhagavan. So he understands what Bhagavan is. One day, the father in the place of worship, that is on Sunday, noticed Mr. Charles sitting inside a wine shop and having wine. Regularly he is doing that. So, the father said, looking at him, I see every time after the Sunday sermon I come out and then when I come and then I notice you sitting here. I doubt if we will ever meet in heaven. I doubt if we ever meet in heaven. Meaning, father thinks he will never come to heaven because he is like this. He will never come to sermon or prayer. He says, what the hell on earth you have done, father, for not coming to heaven? He thinks his father will not come to heaven. He is thinking it like that. Only when we have a clarity of understanding, then we will be able to know where we stand, what we are. So that clarity will be given only by Bhagavan when we surrender to Him. So we offer our sincere prayer to Bhagavan for giving us that clarity. Udina sarvatas chakshuhu Anishas shashvatas sthirah Bhushayo bhushayo bhutihi सर्वभूतेभ्यः समुद्रिक्तत्वात् उदीर्णः. It only means that he is transcendent because he is above everything. He is in the transcendental level. He is transcendent. He is the transcendental state of supreme consciousness. Why? Because he is above everything. He is superior to everything. He is beyond limitations. He is infinitude beyond all the limitations. That is why he is a transcendent. We are bound by limitations. We are in the limitations. That is why we are not transcendent. We are attempting to transcend all the limitations. And who can make us transcend? Only the one who is a transcendent in nature. Then only can make us a transcendent. That is why sometimes this meditation is called as transcendental meditation. Meaning what? It will make us go beyond the limitations and then reach the transcendental state. Sarvada Chakshuhu, having eyes everywhere. Sarvadaha sarvam svachaitanyena pashyati iti sarvadaha Chakshuhu. Perceiving everything through his consciousness. Earlier also we have seen, he sees, he perceives everything directly through his consciousness. That is why he is said to be having eyes everywhere. And one more way also, because he is the indweller present in us who makes our eyes function. Our sense organs will function only when the Antaryami is there, giving that capacity for the mind and the sense organs to function. So then only they function. So then only they see. So he is this main seer behind our eyes to see. Mind power behind our eyes. That way also he is having eyes everywhere. And it is also said, because he is present in all the beings, through all their eyes, he sees everything, everywhere at all times. He sees everything everywhere at all times. So we can understand one thing, that we might at times think that people have not noticed us, not recognized us, not valued us, not appreciated us. So we can know only one thing. We need not feel sad or bad or gloomy because of such thoughts. We can know God in them, who as internal organ might have not recognized us, might have not appreciated us, might have not really said that we have done something valuable. But God in him, God in them realizes something. Because he sees, for his seeing, their eyes are not required. He directly sees through them. So once we understand this, then the correlation that somebody who should have recognized has not recognized, somebody who should have appreciated has not appreciated, that will leave us so that we can be more peaceful in doing our actions. Otherwise, what happens? Nobody is recognizing, why should I do? Nobody is really valuing, why should I work? So I will lose my interest in work, and more so, I will feel more rejected after doing strenuous and hard work. So this is the point in our mind which bothers us. We can just leave it because he goes on seeing through all eyes, at all places, at all times. There is no time where he does not see. There is no place where he does not see. There is no thing which he does not see. Everything, everywhere, at all times. But also means, Swami Chinmayananda says that we should also be very careful about what we keep in our mind. Because he sees. Others may not see. Others may not know. Even today, anybody is vulnerable. Because when people play tricks, easily people believe, others believe. Because his vulnerability is always there. Because people cannot really discern untruth from truth, the false from truth. Very difficult. It is not all that easy. Unless and until there is some intuitive awareness, it is not easy. People are gullible. So, that is why here the important thing is, when we understand that God sees to everybody, then we have distrust, then God only gives us that intuitive capacity to recognize what is there happening in others' minds or what is the right response in the situation. He will only bless us with that. With our limited mind and psychological tricks and techniques, we may try few things, but we cannot try always. we cannot be real successful people. He will give us that when we know that He sees through everybody, even through the one who is attempting to deceive us or cheat us. If we have that trust that He sees inside them, and He will take care. He will definitely take care of all this. So He sees, so we should be very careful in what we see and what we see outside and what we see inside and what is there which is seen by the real seer. So we should keep our mind clear, pure, and our activities and deeds and living styles pure. That is the idea of Sarvataha Chakshu. Anishaha. Mahanarayana Upanishad says, Natasyeshe Kaschana. No one rules over him. He is the ultimate ruler. Meaning, he has no lord over him. When we go on asking who is greater than, who is the lord of that, finally it comes to him. After that, there is no lord above him. He is the Lord, ultimate Bhagavan. So no one rules over him. So that is why he is the one who has no lord above him. He is the supreme Lord. Anishaha. Next, Shashvata Sthiraha, eternal and stable. As consciousness, it is eternal and stable. Even when the body changes, mind modifies, intellect grows into new dimensions, but there is no change in the consciousness which illumines the body, mind and intellect. Intellect can change, mind can change, body can change. But that is always eternal and also stable because nothing influences it. We are unstable because we are identified with the mind. Mind is identified with the world. Any change, any instability in the world, that makes the mind also unstable, and there is instability inside it also. But actually the consciousness is neither identified with the mind or the world or the various modifications of the mind or the body, the intellect. So it is stable and it is beyond time. So it is eternal. Time also appears in it. Next, Bhuta Shayana, resting on the ground. This is what is the meaning that is given here. Resting on the ground. Then again it is said that during the Rama Avtara, when he came up to the shore of the ocean, in his journey to travel to Lanka, it is said that Bhagavan rested on the shores of the ocean. That is how this name has come. Then, Bhushana, adorning the world by his various incarnations. It is Vishnu. Every incarnation of Bhagavan is a true adoration of the world. It is like an ornament for the world, a divine ornament, every avatar. Because that also makes us being lot of spiritual ornaments. Because of the leelas that Bhagavan does, because of the teachings that Bhagavan gives, because of the Mahatmya that Bhagavan shows, we will also learn that and we will also gain that spiritual ornaments. So it is like that. And it is also said, Bhagavan alone is behind all the great, all the noble and all the beautiful thoughts which have enriched the human life in history and even in the present times. The culture that enriches us, the spiritual philosophy that enriches us, all the beauty that belongs only to Bhagavan. So that is the beauty of beauties, which is His beauty, and that is why He is Bhushana to the whole creation. Because He used that beauty of the beauties, by knowing which we will also become very beautiful spiritually. Vishokaha, the griefless. Vigataha, Shoko Asya, Paramanandaiva Rupatva iti Vishokaha. Being absolute bliss, he is griefless. He is of the nature of Paramananda. So there is no grief. And another beautiful thing here is, he makes his devotees also freed from all grief. We may not have the capacity to get the freedom from the grief. But when we surrender to Him, He will make us free from the grief. If the grief is there, if the sorrow is there, we try to handle it by various techniques. When it becomes impossible for us to handle it, we ask Him to handle it. That means that even that notion of acting also is surrendered to Him. He will handle it and He will make us free from all sorrows and all grief. And then we will also become contented, and because of the contentment, we will become desireless. Because he is ever contented, ever blissful, though he is desireless. He has no desire, because what is that which is gained through desire is joy. That is already there in him, and abundance as his own nature. Why he has to gain anything? Why he has to entertain any desire? There is no need for it. That is why he is Shoka and griefless. Then Shoka Nasana, the destroyer of grief. He destroys the grief of the devotees by the very remembrance of him. All that people have to do is just remember, and he will destroy the grief of the devotees. And it is also said, he alone lifts the individual ego out of the suffering. Because this individual ego is identified with the change in itself, change in others, change in the outside world. So, this identification with the change is the way of the ego. That is why Bhagavan lifts this ego from all these identifications by giving it true wisdom of its own divine nature. Then the ego on the verge of realization goes through the experience called as Sakshatkar or the Vritti, and when it feels it is realized, then afterwards even that notion of realizing also is not there. The ego merges into the one who is realized and remains as one with it. No more ego is there anymore. So that is how he will make us completely freed from all the Shoka. And it is also said, Bhagavan himself says, it is his responsibility to purify and to make the individuals progress and finally come out of the ocean of the samsara. Tesham aham samudharta mrityu samsara sarga bhavami nachiratpartha anyavesita chetasa. In the Bhagavad Gita, 12th chapter, the 7th sloka, Bhagavan himself promises that for them whose minds are set on me, Mahi avesita chetasa, minds are set on him totally. Then Bhagavan says, verily I become along, O Bharata, a savior to save them out of the ocean of finite experiences that is the samsara. Then what is this mind set on me means? Then Gurudev says, mind setting on him means first condition is worshipping him. When we worship him, our mind rests on him, it concentrates on him, it sets on him, number one. Second thing, whatever actions we are doing, which takes our mind away, when we renounce all actions in him, meaning we are doing actions only connected with him, related to him, and totally dedicated to him, then what happens? We are seeing through actions also only him. That amounts to renouncing all actions in him. And how we have to treat him? We have so many goals, we have so many things to attain, we have so many things to achieve. But we have to treat Bhagavan as the ultimate goal, supreme goal. When we consider him as the supreme goal, and then also we do these actions, remembering him or surrendering unto him or renouncing all this unto him. And when we worship him, and in addition to that, one more condition is said here, that when we meditate on him, when we constantly meditate on him with single pointed mind, then Bhagavan considers that as the mind set on him completely. Otherwise, mind can think of Bhagavan, but it is not set on him. In order for Bhagavan to really uplift us completely and totally from all the troubles that we are facing, instantly we need to set our mind on him. A single pointed devotion, considering him as a supreme goal, renouncing all actions in him, worshipping him. Simple 4-point formula. If we can do this, then mind will set on him. Once the mind sets on him, no Shoka can ever touch us at any point of time. How nice it is that we can be freed from the grief totally, altogether. There was one preacher who took his car to the car garage for repair. And then, after the mechanic verified what is wrong in it, he started writing it and he started preparing the bill also for the sake of taking the advance. So, at that time, the preacher said, I think you will go at ease with the preparation of bill and all. Go with ease. Because I am a poor preacher. He said, because I am a poor preacher. The mechanic said, I know that. Yesterday I heard you talking. I know that you are a poor preacher. Not that he is poor financially. So, our richness actually lies in only setting our mind on Him. Because all richness belongs to Him. Setting our mind on Him is the only thing that we have to do. Rest He takes care of removal of all inconveniences, all limitations and all sorts. Archishmanachitah kumbho Vishuddhatma Vishodhana Aniruddho Pradiraha Pradyumno Mita Vikramaha Archishman means the brilliant, because he alone has the radiance, he alone radiates to all other radiating things and shining things. So all the sun, moon, stars, everything is brilliant only because of his brilliance. That is why he is brilliant. Next, Architaha, the worshipper. Even by Brahma and all other great gods, he alone is worshipped. Not by ordinary beings. All other gods and Brahma are worshipped by others and they worship him. So he is the worshipper. Because everybody worships him. Next, Kumbhaha, meaning the container. As everything is contained in him, we can look at a vessel that contains the things that are placed in it. Like that, everything is contained in him, meaning in Bhagavan. So that is why he alone is called as the container or the sustainer. Normally we see the space contains everything. He contains the space also. The other day we have seen about the Sukshma Tanmatras and then Panchikarana and Panchabuddhas and all that. So he alone creates this gross space also and the Sukshma Tanmatra also, and finally from the ego where these came, and finally from that Avyakta and Avyakta finally into that Samudra Brahma. So he alone brings up all these things, so he contains everything. So he is the container of everything. Just like a pot contains the things that are placed in it. The and one more thing he said, Swamiji says here that not only the container, but actually the contents also are his own blessing. He alone is there as contents also. Contained also, the capacity to contain also, everything is here. But from one point we say he is the container. So the contained in the container, the capacity to contain the contained in the container, and the contents, everything is here. That is why he is the container. Vishuddhatma, the pure Atma, being freed from all the gunas, the trigunas, he is always pure. We are under the influence of gunas, so we are bound by impurities and various other qualities. Next, Vishodhana, the purifier. Purifier of sins by remembrance of Him. When we remember Him, He will purify us from all sins. And it is also said that our restlessness, our agitations are all indications that our mind is impure. Restlessness and agitation is a sign of impurity. So He will remove that impurity. Along with that impurity, the restlessness also, agitation also, and naturally the sin also leaves us. Aniruddha, the unobstructed. Nothing can obstruct Him beyond all obstructions. This name we have seen earlier also. But here it is also interpreted as Chaturvyuheshu Chaturdho Vyuhaha Niruddha. Being the fourth of the four Vyuhas or manifestations. Earlier we have seen as Vasudeva, Sankarshana, Pradyumna, Aniruddha. In that he is the fourth Aniruddha. And we also saw elaborately various things connected with Aniruddha also. So his influence is unabated in all the devotees. His influence is there. He takes care of all the things that have to be kept unobstructed inside the devotee. The mind remains free from obstructions. Bhagavan alone takes care of that. And it is also said, he who is invincible by any one of his enemies. That is why also he is unobstructed. No enemy can obstruct him, restrict him, confine him. For you and I, the obstructions happen by external enemies and internal enemies. Internal enemies also obstruct us, external enemies also obstruct us. So there are obstructions. Every obstruction is actually a limitation, which is a reflection of our own inner limitation. So that is why we need to come out of those limitations. Here Bhagavan will bring us out of all these inner enemies, inner obstructions and outer enemies, outer obstructions. That is why we have to hold on to the unobstructed so that we can also remove all obstructions that are there in us internally and externally. Apratiraha, the unrivaled. Pratiragaha, Pratipaksho, Asya, Na Vidyata Iti. There is no opposition existing in front of him. There is nothing that can oppose him. There is no rivalry actually. How we can say that? Here it is said, in his loving presence, he dissolves the opposing mind of the opposition also. In various experiments that are conducted by great masters, it is proved beyond doubt that if we have real, genuine love pouring out from us, and also recognizing that the same divinity is present in us and in that opposing person also, the love is purely expressed with this feeling, then naturally that opposition also will dissolve automatically. But this has to be very genuine expression of love and really considering that other person also carries the same divinity that I also carry in me. When I see my beloved God, the divinity present in the other person and express my genuine love for him, that is all. Even for human beings this becomes possible. But even when there are opposing continuing still, then another way this has to be understood is the one who has no feelings of insecurity. There is no feelings of insecurity in a person who is really relying upon Bhagavan, or he knows what his true nature is, or at least relying upon Bhagavan, then there is no insecurity. When there is no insecurity, there is no threat. When there is no threat felt, there is no enemy outside. Enemy might be there, thinking that he is an enemy. But when we don't consider him as an enemy, because we are not threatened, because we are not feeling insecure, because we are secure, because our security is not in the world, but our security is in Bhagavan himself, then we have not considered him as an enemy. Even one more thing, it is said in one of the Upadeshas, Balaki Vidyopadesha by Swami Vidyaranya, yes, given it out very nicely in Anubhuti Prakasha. It is said, when we recognize that the other person's self also is our own self, which is divine self, then we will be able to kill the enmity in the enemy because of that recognition. We will kill the enmity in the enemy. Meaning, we will start seeing that person as our own reflection because we see our own presence there. So, we don't have enemy. We are no more treating the person as an enemy. So, that way, Bhagavan, by being present in all, he is apratiradaha, unrivaled. There is no rivalry actually. Actually from him. That is why when Bhagavan fights within a so-called Rakshasa also, we have seen that after that fight is over, Rakshasa is finished again, that inner so-called identity of that Rakshasa again merges with Bhagavan only. That means what? He has no hatred, he never considered that person as an enemy. Next, Pradyumna. Here the meaning is very wealthy. He gives riches, might and glory to all those who seek from him through pure devotion. And it is also said, just as they have seen the as the fourth of the Vyuhas, here it is also seen as the third of the Vyuhas. So, Pradyumna. Next, Amita Vikrama, of unequaled powers. There is nobody who can equal his powers. Or another way, unaffected prowess, bravery or valor, which is unaffected at any point of time. So his understanding is clear about himself, like that his devotees also become clear in their understanding. There was one teacher who was teaching his students, because it was a military school. So his examples also have to be connected to things that the military people use. So we started teaching something and said, the military sergeant, when he holds the machine gun, all the bullets get discharged from the circular disc there. That circular disc is a circle, for example, of circle. It is of 260 degrees. One student said, sir, all circles are of 360 degrees. And this man said, shut up! That machine gun circle is smaller than it is 260 degrees. His understanding is clear. Circle means it has to have 360 degrees. Like the is. So, understanding to be clear, we need to depend only upon Bhagavan. Then he will make the understanding clear for understanding him. There was one person who went to the ophthalmologist and then said, Doctor, in the morning when I looked at my eyes in the mirror, I noticed that one of them is totally distinct and separate from the other, different from the other. And the doctor looked at him and said, which one? The doctor is saying both are like that. Which one? Doctor doesn't know. So like that, when we see the world, we need to have our vision clear. If our vision is inspired by our own imperfections, then whatever we see outside also will be filled with imperfection. Kalane nihavira, Chauri Surajaneshwara, Trilokatma Trilokesha, Esha Vakeshiha Harihi, Kalaneni Niha, the slayer of Asura Kalaneni. And in one of the interpretations it is said as he is the grandson of Hiranyakashipu, Kalaneni. And it is also said Bhagavan is called as Kalaneni because he is the destroyer of the wheel of time. He even merges that wheel of time into himself. There is no more time also. In himself, anyway, there is no time. During the Pralaya also, there will be no more time afterwards. And it is also said in one of the Puranas that Marichi and his wife Purna had 6 powerful sons. And these 6 very powerful sons, once it seems, as per the Purana, they laughed at Brahma and ridiculed at him, saying that he manifested Saraswati, he created Saraswati, manifested Saraswati, and then yet he kept her with him as his wife. So they ridiculed him. For Like that, if you go on looking at it, the whole creation is manifestation of Bhagavan only. It is only for taking care of particular aspects that particular positions are given or attributed. So here it seems Brahmadeva got angry about their ridicule and then said to them, because of your impure thinking, may you all be born as Rakshasas. May you all be born as Rakshasas. And then what happened? It seems they were all born to a demon called as Kalanini on the earth. And later on, it is said, the Purana says, they were also, in one of the Puranas it is mentioned that they were also born as the sons of Hiranyakashipu. And at that time, in order to get out of the Rakshasic nature again, still they are continuously being born like that. So what they did tapas for Brahma, who only captured them like that. When they did tapas for Brahma, Brahma became kind on them and then said, ask for the boon. And it seems they asked in their mentality as a Rakshasas, that they should not be killed by anybody. And then thereafterwards, Hiranyakashipu came to know about it. Then he was not happy that they got this boon behind his back without letting him know. Then it seems he got angry and then he said that they will go to Patala and they will be caught there as Sadarbhagas and they will remain in sleep for a long time there in the Patala. Again, when they pleaded, Purana says, Hiranyakashipu tells them, all of you will be born to Devaki and Vasudeva, and that will be your pious birth, where you will be born there. Immediately after your birth, the Kalaneni, who was your earlier father, Rakshasa, will be born as Kamsa, and he will finish all of you the moment you are born in somewhere. So you will be liberated. That will be final, and you will get into the original status back. So that is the connection of Kamsa being the Kalaneni and Sri Krishna killing the Kamsa, who is another form of Kalaneni. So Kalaneni Niha, the slayer of Asura Kalaneni. And the link of Kamsa and those children, when we know the things that are interconnected, then we come to understand that there are so many things behind that action. So many things behind. Like that we have seen few things in Mahabharata also, Kurukshetra, and do because of these discourses. So when we see only one segment, we think that this is not happening. When we see the totality behind it, then we will understand. So Bhagavan is the one who destroys in time all the evildoers and even in time also the doers. Veeraha, the valiant, the heroic victor. Veeraha, Shuraha. That is what is the interpretation. The valiant, heroic victor. One who is ever victorious. Next, Saurihi. This is again repeated name. Earlier also we saw the whole Sauri clan, how Bhagavan Sri Krishna is connected with that clan and all that because of Surasena, and we saw all that. Born in the Sura Kula or the clan of the Yadavas. Sura Kulodbhavat Saurihi. Next, Sura Janeshwara, the Lord of the valiant. He gives strength to all devas, even the Lord of devas, and to anybody whom they worship also. So he is the one who gives strength to everybody because of his superior, most powerful state. So he is the Lord of all of them. Then Trilokatma, the self of the three words. Trayanam, Lokanam, Antaryataya, Atmeti, Trilokatma. He is the Antaryati, the indweller, inner controller of all the three worlds. In an individual who undergoes the three different worlds also, and the other way Gurudev said, taking dream and deep sleep, and he is the indweller, Antaryami, who controls all these worlds. He is the one who witnesses the waker also, dreamer also, deep sleeper also, and everything. Trayoloka asma paramatthato na vidyata itiva triloka. Actually, the three worlds are not actually different from him. In the light of pure consciousness, everything is appearing in him. So he alone makes them appear like that. So they are not actually different from him. He alone. So that way also, he takes us beyond all these things when we see that he is the one pure consciousness. Then Trilokeshara, the ruler of the three worlds. The three worlds, in obedience to him, attend to their respective functions. Some people interpret it as Swarga, Bhumi and Patala. Everything, everywhere works in obedience to him and their respective functions are fulfilled. Keshava, there are few interpretations here, whose hair is effulgence. The hair of Bhagavan itself is full of effulgence. Kesha Sannita Suryadi Sankranta Amshava Tadvattaya Keshava. Keshas are borrowed rays actually which are in the sun and the rest, meaning the sun and all others have borrowed these rays from him. And as he is the owner of those rays that are borrowed, the brilliant effulgent rays that are borrowed by sun and others, he is Keshava. And it is also said in the Mahabharata, Amshabhoye prakashante mamaite kesha sannita sarvajna keshavam tasma mama buddhija sattama. In the Mahabharata, Bhagavan himself says, the rays that belong to me, the rays of mind, which illumine the whole world, which illumine everything, the externally appearing things also and other things, all the things in this world are illumined by me, including that illumining sun and others. And third rays which are illumining them are called Keshas. That is why the wise Brahmanas, the learned people, call me therefore by the name Keshava. And it is also said in another interpretation, Brahma, Vishnu, Shivaksha, Shaktaya, Kesha Sannita, Tadvattaya Keshava. The energies or Shaktis, are called as Brahma, Vishnu and Rudra, who are taking care of different functions. And they are actually his own energies. That energies are manifested in the form the Mahavishnu or the Parabrahma Tattva, and his energy is manifested as Vishnu, Brahma and the Rudra. That is why these energies which are manifested as Brahma, Vishnu and Rudra are actually his Keshas. And he rules over them. That is why he is Keshava. His energies. Keshas means energies, his own energy. And he rules over them. That is why he is Keshava. And it is also said that Bhagavan Shiva himself says, Ko Brahmeti Samakshata Ishoham Sarvadehinam Avam